You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to episode 153 of the On Purpose Podcast. Man, I've been reflecting a lot. We've been putting out a lot of episodes and recording quite a bit, and something kind of caught my attention the other day, and it got me thinking about it. And I thought I would do an episode and share my thoughts on this, and that is this quote here, kind of guide you into it. It's a quote from Aristotle, and it says, "Knowing thyself is the beginning of all wisdom." And I found that interesting because recently with a lot of our guests and just in conversation I have a myriad of places, but specifically with our guests lately, a lot of their superpowers were focused on being able to hear what other people thought, or to be on a fly on the wall and be able to observe truths. Or like Jerry said, I think hers was last week, Jerry talked about being able to look at somebody and have them speak only the truth to her. And I thought, how telling is that? Like, we love that. And I agree with those. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Wanting to get honest communication from others and be able to get past the small talk to actually talk about what's on your mind and how you can improve each other and maybe what's bothering you. And if you need help, having the courage to ask for it. So if we could just see them for their truths, we wouldn't have to worry about the facades. And I thought that was super awesome. But then I also started thinking about, what if we applied that same logic to ourselves? And what if we couldn't lie to ourselves? What would we do differently? What if every time we looked in the mirror, we could only tell ourselves the truth? How would that change us? How would that impact us? What kind of conversations would we actually be having? I'll tell you, for me, like, I've been thinking about this a lot with this lifestyle change, and Andrea and I having so much time, together just as a couple in a small place and then alone by ourselves. It's really forced me to evaluate myself, and I've realized there were things I was telling myself that probably weren't true. And there were things I was letting myself get away with that were not only not beneficial to me, but harmful to the relationships around me. Right? There were the hustle and bustle of our normal life, the distractions of what we used to call our real life, right? Like, I could do something that hurt somebody, or say something that was hurtful to somebody, or leave something unresolved and just, instead of dealing with it, bury myself in work or the distractions, whatever it may be, instead of working on basically a fundamental flaw or core issue. I could just be so busy that I would forget it happened or pretend it didn't happen. And I would hope whoever else was involved would forget it didn't happen or pretend it didn't happen. And we just go on about our time being busy, but not being our best, not being our most productive, because we had never resolved the issue. And now being out here, that's one of the things Andrew and I tell people, and they're like, what's changed the most? How's your relationship changed? And it's honesty. With just the two of us in a small place, we can't afford to have things unresolved. We can't afford to hurt one another's feelings and not apologize and figure out why we did that. We have to address the issues because there is no other hiding from it. There is no other place to be busy. It's the truth. It's the reality. It's right here in front of us. And I think at times, if we could take a moment and just stand in the mirror and ask ourselves, am I being true to myself today? Am I being who I wanted to be today? Did I do the things that I need to do to be better for tomorrow? And we were forced to answer those things honestly, like we'd love to hear from other people. We may tell ourselves different stories. We may make that apology. We may, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, give 70% to meet somebody else at the 30 instead of making up excuses that we were too busy to be there. maybe we would actually take that personal development course or really reflect on who we are and are we happy? And if we're not happy, how do I become happy? I think it would be an amazing superpower to be able to make people talk to themselves honestly. And I love this quote too. An honest man's pillow is his peace of mind. But if you're being honest to yourself and you're doing the things you're supposed to do, when you go to your bed at night, you don't fear that pillow. You don't fear that place where your dreams come back to life because they're going to be unobtainable. You don't fear it because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. An honest man's pillow becomes his peace of mind when he knows he put in the effort that day, or she knows she's doing the things required to make that dream come true. And whether you're Jerry Linick at 75 writing her first book, all the way back to anybody else that's come on the show, to each of us, we know whether or not we are taking that idea that lives in our dreams and that we only get to see when we sleep at night. We know if we're taking the steps necessary to make that reality the other 16 hours of the day. And if we're not, we're letting ourselves off the hook with busyness and excuses and the reasons why we're not becoming who we want to be or getting to where we want to go. What if we apply that superpower to ourselves that we cannot be anything but truthful when we look in the mirror? What if we accept that our superpower first and foremost is going to be knowing thyself? What would we tell ourselves? What does that dialogue look like and sound like? And more importantly, where would it lead us? Some things to think about this week. Thank you as always, the On Purpose Podcast, and we'll see everybody again next week. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.